What's going on, everybody? It's Childish. We're back at it again with the next episode of Educate and Dominate, that one-on-one interview series where we take some of the top names in the game and get their insights so we can bring your game to the next level. My next guest is a person that needs no introduction, a top YouTuber, top Summoners War, Guild War player with a Club Deuce Fight. We got ourselves today the number one ranked ToAH. Reafi is up in this mix. How are we doing today, sir?
What up? How's it going? I'm Reafi.
It is going. It is going. For those that are new to the channel, welcome to the channel. Educate and Dominate has definitely evolved over the course of our time. Starting out with some top-end players on the arena side, then moving on to the Guild Wars side, and now it is my pleasure to, break on that new edition, talking about ToA and ToA Hard. We had to bring the person that got that number one rank this month. So again, Reafi, congratulations on that win. I know you've been gunning at it for a while, and I'm happy to see you at the number one rank.
Thank you. I'm still new to the whole ToAH Hard Rush. I mean, this is my only third time against people that have been doing it for months and months and months. But I plan on keeping that rank one for quite a while now. I mean, I had a pretty good finish time. I think it was like 4 hours 49 minutes. But I still got to beat those Asians on Asia server. They're crazy. They're like 4 hours 20 minutes in or something like that, and they beat it.
Right. Yeah, there's some pretty good competition around the court, but let's talk about that initial wave into getting into it. When ToA was introduced, all of us were just kind of focused on clearing, and then as people progressed, they realized that with the addition of the whole speed rushing and being able to see your number one rank, a lot of people started diving into that or whatnot. And I'd say initially on, you saw a trend of a lot of the G2, G3 players that were already established and had well-rounded runes did exceptionally well, but it seems to be that before, with regards to some of these people coming up, I mean, you necessarily don't have to be the best in the PvP side to excel in the PvE. Now, you obviously do good on the PvP side as well as the PvE. For the people that are coming on board, what do you think is that, first thing that they need to take down as far as the necessary switch, moving from just farming ToA casually or ToAH casually to trying to be in that competitive nature with regards to speed teams and whatnot?
Well, it always starts with like really slow progression. So a lot of people think that ToA normal is like a lot of team compositions and stuff, and that mainly just deals with your rune quality because you can literally clear that with anything. I did a 3-star challenge where I only did it with 3 stars and 2 stars, and that one took a while, but that was super easy to do. So it's all rune quality on normal side. But then when you get into hard mode, it's all about your team composition. You could go in with really horrible runes or 5-star units, and you could still clear the stages because it's a certain team composition that either prevents their moves or starts lowering their damage and stuff like that. So it's kind of like just baby steps. And when you start moving up to where you've got both rune quality and team composition, that's when you can start building teams that can not only take away their turns, but also deal damage as you're moving up those stages. So it's all about like managing your time because you don't want to clear it too fast and you don't want to clear it too slow. So if you want to move towards like competitive ToA, which I mean would be kind of strange because you don't get anything for it, but other than top 100 list name, but yeah, you just got to start making your team with proper rune quality builds. Definitely.
Gotcha. So let's kind of start off first with exactly what you said, talking about the overall team composition. There's a lot of people out there that are looking to get in that competitive nature, but not really sure what units to start. Obviously, without a doubt, there's going to be some units out there that are going to be, some of the top units out there that are going to be great when it comes to ToA. But for some of these up-and-coming players out there, let's think about some of the farmable, fusible, easily obtainable units that you can recommend for them to start building if they're looking to be competitive.
So the thing with ToA hard mode is that there's no specific list of monsters that you will absolutely need. It's all going to be dependent on your summons, of course, but there's some units that you'll see on any team, any given team, dependent on like what they're specifically using, like bombs, dots, or just straight up damage. And I can tell you right now, probably the most used units that are obtainable or farmable or easier to get would definitely, one of them would have to be Beretta. He's fusible. He does a ton of good usefulness. He's got a speed leader skill. He actually, what is his awakening ability? He awakens, okay, so he gets a stronger third skill. So he deals a ton of dots, and his second skill is a 3-turn complete attack bar reduction of the enemy, which is super helpful for the boss stages. I still use Beretta for some of the boss stages. Another one, actually, believe it or not, would be Mav. A lot of people kind of just disregard Mav, even though a lot of people use him. mainly because he's a 3-star unit, and they look at Mav and they're like, oh, I don't need that. I can use Jemire or any of the other units like that, Bernard. He is completely irreplaceable. He brings a kit that no other unit in the game can bring, not even Jemire. He brings Provoke, Stun, cooldown reduction. He brings attack speed. He cleanses. He's got the whole shebang, the entire thing. And Mav is probably one of the safest units you can bring. That's actually one of the units that when you start bringing him, you'll notice a huge increase in your successful runs through ToA hard mode. So Mav is a huge help when you start going into ToA hard, and that's actually one of the unit specifics that a lot of people recommend. And then lastly, the one, these are like the 3 main ones that you'll actually get a huge difference of if you don't have many options. I definitely recommend the Dark Taoist. I've never really gotten a chance to play with him, but I've seen people use him, and he's just got an absolutely amazing kit because he does crazy stuff on his first skill. Well, he put glancing hit, and he also decreases the attack power. He does an amazing second skill where he slows them and stuns them within the same skill, which is on a really low cooldown. And then the third one also stuns and then self-heals and cleanses and all of that stuff too. So if you guys are kind of like short on the whole CC stuff, Woundhawk is a pretty good option. Now those 3 units are just kind of like scratching the surface of it. There's a ton of CC units that you can use. You could use Veramos, you could use Bernard, Vertihil, any of those stuff. You could use the Grim Reapers. There's a ton of options, and it's kind of like there's a whole list to go through, but more than anything, you just need to understand the team composition that you'll be wanting to bring more than anything.
Gotcha. And with regards to taking that next step into not maybe the common units, but some of the units that are kind of really clutch in allowing people to kind of excel. I mean, obviously, those first 50 stages are going to be relatively easy for people that have cleared, TOA normal. Most people can do stage 1 to stage 40 to 50, without too much trouble. Once we kind of break into that 50 stage, things are going to change as far as compositions and whatnot. So with regards to those particular units, what are some key things that people should consider when looking at the second half of the ToH stages? What do you think?
So yeah, definitely. By the time you clear ToA normal, you already have the rune qualities for that type of stuff. So when you want to start increasing your ToA hard stages and like the level that you get to, which you should, because it gives you a ton more crystals, scrolls, and all of that stuff, that's when you start forming your teams. And I broke it down into 2 main teams, and it's just kind of like a little skeleton of what you would create it around. And I actually made 2 videos on this. There's the no healer comp, one, you could use Belladon technically for the attack bar boost, but there's a no healer comp, and then there's the auto comp. So the no healer comp would typically have dots or bombs or straight up damage. We are trying to deny the enemy their turn constantly throughout the entire stage so that you don't have to worry about heals or anything like that. You're just completely controlling their turns. And it basically results in like Beretta, you could use Thrain, you could use Veramos, and you just get a ton of turns where you're dealing damage over time and stuff like that while they don't get a move to do damage to you. Now, the next team would typically be the auto team, which does require a little bit better rune quality, but it's more convenient for the casual players that don't want to race and stuff like that, where you'd basically bring a team that can auto ToA, because you can auto 1 through 100, where you bring a good healer like Jasoon, you could bring in Emma, you could bring in Belladon with defense buff, and then you'd bring some damage mitigation, so bring defense buff, attack break, and typically that would include, you could use Brienne, any other AoE attack bar reduction, you could use Arya, you could use like all of that stuff. So like with the whole team, there's different compositions to make. I'd definitely say the easiest one moving in from 50 and upwards, since that's typically the cutoff point with like Woundsa and Veramos stages and stuff, you definitely want to start out with the no healer comp. It's the easiest one to do. You can just easily throw in Vertihil, Beretta, Veramos, like stuff that you would already have, and you just start moving up the stages as you try to prevent them turns. And Veramos is probably the most easy to obtain CC monster, since you should already have him. And his second skill, while not super consistent, is enough to kind of stop them from all attacking at once, killing your team. So that'd be the easiest team to step up from 50s and then go higher. But then higher than that, you would start needing to make ToA specific units specifically to increase your runs, if you get what I mean.
Gotcha. Yes, definitely. And so when it comes to these, stages on the second half of the mix, we got a lot of units that you have that most people don't have. What do you feel are some of your favorite units are to take advantage of some of these boss stages? What do you think?
Oh, Varad, 100%. Varad is probably the most overpowered unit overall in the game probably right now. He's absolutely crazy. He's like on some Zyros level stuff. He brings in so much utility now with his buff where he deals a little bit more decent damage. It's not crazy damage, but it is decent, and he brings in 2 turn denial on his 3rd skill, and then he brings in 1 turn denial on his 2nd skill. It's short cooldowns, HP leader skill, and he awakens into accuracy. So if there's one unit in the game that gives me an advantage in ToA over everything else, it's by far Varad. Like 100%, no competition. And if you have Varad, you should be already cleared with ToA hard mode. You just need to make maybe a couple units or upgrade a couple runes, and then you're done. Varad's like a gimme. So
most definitely. And then of course, thinking about some of the things that you do that kind of separate you from the rest that I kind of noticed while watching you on the ToA Rush, on your video, excuse me, is that the rune builds on some of these units are a little bit different than what most people would talk about or whatnot. For example, Beretta, most of us has kind of grown up to the at the level where we understand that Despair is a really, really good set on them, most commonly used or whatnot. But you take a different approach on that. You have yourself Beretta on a violent focus. Tell me a little bit about your strategy here and why you feel it's more valuable in your particular setup.
So again, it just kind of like rolls back into the whole Despair versus Violent. And what I've found is that while Despair is more reliable on units like Brand and Bread and stuff like that, when you start looking towards speed clearing, it's all about dealing as much damage as you can in a short amount of time as possible while keeping your cooldowns up. So I noticed that Violent on Beretta helps do that when I decide not to bring Amir for damage, because most of the time I bring in a Wombo or a Cleave type clear team. And if I can't do that, like on stage 93 hard with 4 Leos and then 4 Ragdolls and a Leo, I bring in dots. I bring in a ton of dots, and the best way to do that is to have Beretta on Violent, have Thrain on Violent, and then I can just go as many turns as I can to get as many dots off on their skills. So that's why I run both of them on Violent runes. And that's mainly because if you don't need the Despair runes, if you're using units that really can lock them down more consistently, like Varad, or like any of the other Nat 5s or Nat 4s that CC lock with a 100% chance, then you don't need to really focus on Despair runes. It's mainly just a bonus.
Sure, definitely. And so when coming up with regards to ToA, it's taken you a couple times here to get that #1 rank. Like all of us, there's a lot of mistakes we make along the way, and we learn from those mistakes. What are maybe like 1 or 2 of the biggest mistakes that you've learned or you've seen other people do that you've been able to learn from to allow you to get that #1 rank this month?
I'd say the biggest mistake that I tend to make is underestimating stages. There's some stages that you'll expect to be easy just based on the units, but the thing with ToA hard mode is that the stats are so inflated that their skills could be like they catch you completely off guard. One of these units is actually the Dark Martial Cat. This Dark Martial Cat gives me nightmares in ToA hard mode. She is an absolute beast, and she just tears you up if you don't like tread carefully against those types of stages. So it's all about trying to expect the unexpected when it comes to these units with their inflated stats. And you got to kind of plan ahead and maybe give a little bit of wiggle room in case something goes wrong. So I kind of noticed that for certain stages, there's certain ways that they'll act, certain ways the monsters will be, and then certain stats that they have based on how far up the Trial of Ascension they are. And that's based, like, I've started writing down which stages give me trouble, which teams I should bring, and stuff like that, because the stages stay the same. They rotate around, but they stay the same. So I kind of keep that mental list for certain, like, 5 or 6 stages so that I can prepare ahead of that. So then I stop failing stages on those ones, and then I can continuously keep climbing without getting stuck. And with my team, since it is already, like, pretty fast, that helps me climb it faster, because the only thing that really holds me back on time is when I get stuck on stages. And that's how I was able to clear it about an hour ahead of everyone this last Trial Ascension. I didn't get stuck.
Right. I think that's a really, really good point to make. We get so set on once we clear stuff, we're like, oh, okay, it's good, we're set, and we're not gonna have to worry about it anymore. When in all reality is that there's so many stages to the game, so many things that we have to consider, that there is no one specific team that can clear all different stages. So for some of you guys listening, definitely take note on figuring out what works for you and then jotting it down so you can reduce the amount of time that you can clear this. The one thing that arena players have an edge over now is with the introduction, arena and guild wars alike, is the introduction of decks. So with regards to the decks, they're allowed to pick a particular team that they commonly use for a certain situation, pick it and run with it, where at this particular time, you don't have any kind of decks. You have to know exactly what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and pick it as soon as you can. So really, really good point there. Next up for you, I think one of the kind of unique things that some people do and do not do, I wanted to get your take on this. We'll take a step back to, climbing up with regards to the ToA. There's some people out there that are just bringing the most amount of YOLO they can. And then there's some people that are actually choosing 2 to 4 specific units, 3 to 4 specific units, and just using those to clear at that early stage. What's your take on that? Do you say bring your 5 strongest AoE nukers and just run it out, or are you somebody that likes to kind of manual your way with 3 to 4 units, or choose your units wisely when you're trying to clear those first 50 stages? What's your take?
For the first 50 stages, I usually just YOLO it with like Lucian and Amir and Poseidon and Teor and stuff like that. Those ones, the first 50 stages are exactly like Trial of Ascension normal. The stats are really similar. It's all about just rune quality and up to that point. So once you get the rune quality and the skill ups and all of that stuff, there's like no challenge up until 50. But then after that, it's a little bit more difficult to do YOLO and cleave comps and stuff like that. And that's why when I was actually on stream talking to Foix, another top player that wants to rush ToA hard mode, he was trying to get certain teams to work with Amir so that he could YOLO it, but it's completely different based on his units, and he didn't have Varad, or he doesn't have something to freeze lock or to stun lock or something like that. So he's completely reliant on trying to use Thrain to stun them, use Veramos to stun them, use Mantura, Despair runes, and that's the problem if you start using YOLO comps and you're not controlling their turns. You're doing the YOLO comp, the no healer comp, and you're not denying them turns. That's when you start getting into the territory of, is it consistent, is it reliable? And that's the whole point of going into ToA Rush. If you're mainly just trying to clear it, you're better off bringing a safe team. You're better off just getting it over once, because if you're trying to get through it, if you waste a ton of energy on it and you try it 5 times, you're wasting more time and energy on that stage than if you were to just bring a 15-minute team with 3 healers and a reviver and just slow clear it through it. And that's like the whole balance between, do I take a YOLO team and attempt to speed clear it, or do I try to bring a slow team and just get it over with once and for done? So it's kind of like a risk-reward type situation. So if you're just trying to clear it, take the slow route. It saves you time and energy, and it's a lot more efficient. And then you can also learn from that too, based on the teams that you bring. If that answers your question.
All right. That pretty much answered the question. I like it. So, when I think about these stages that we're talking about, there's so many units out there that are extremely common, have been mentioned. You see it time and time being get used, but there's always a couple units that are unique. Maybe you have them, maybe you don't. But if you were to throw out there like probably one of the most underrated and overlooked units that you feel is extremely valuable for not really ToA specifically, but ToA speed rushing, what do you feel and why?
For speed rushing, the game is completely changed. If there's one unit that I feel is completely overlooked for ToA speed rushing, I'd probably have to say it's Spectra, because a lot of the same ToA units will start popping up because, one person will use a team to speed clear it. Someone goes ahead and you can see what team they use for the boss stages and stuff like that, and you can start getting an idea of what specifically they're using. A lot of people know I use cleave teams already. People are starting to try to copy that since they notice that it's a lot faster than trying to use dots. So there's a lot of copying, top players and stuff like that goes on. But one of the units that a lot of people don't expect, and it just comes out of nowhere, is Spectra. And Spectra is actually really kind of like a pivot unit that you could use against boss stages, because he just deals so much damage against these bosses that have 200,000 HP and a ton of defense. And using that second skill, where it's actually based on the enemy's max HP, it's pretty just straightforward. Nuke the boss in like 4 or 5 hits from Spectra and get it out of the way super fast. Now, in terms of like the entire Trial of Ascension, a lot of the same units just kind of come up, and it's just kind of dependent on a person's creativity of what they use, more or less.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was hoping you were gonna bust out that Spectra, because to me, I see it used quite a bit, but no one's like, people are focused on getting that critical rate and the accuracy and whatnot, similar to how they had it ruined in Dragons B10 and whatnot. But of course, this is a completely different ball game, and you got to mix and match some of the units and runes that you bring. One of my favorites is the Hell Lady, basically aura, whatnot. Utilizing a unit that's going to provide you that AoE defense break with a low cooldown time. I think that's pretty unique. Obviously, there's only a handful of people that can use it. It is the Nat 5, but I think it adds a little bit more to the table, especially now with the recent change of the with the Water Hell Lady. I think that's pretty nice there. She puts out quite a bit of damage now. So.
She does actually. I actually like her now, and she's not too bad. And on with the subject of the whole AoE defense break, you can never go wrong with defense break in ToA because you're going to be dealing damage anyways, and they've got high defense. So when you decrease their defense, you're dealing additional damage to whatever type of damage you're using, whether it be bombs or dots or stuff like that. So one of the units for that you could look at is Mentura, the Dark Serpent. A lot of people overlook Mentura just because the stats are really low. But just going specifically into Child of Ascension, and it works in RTA on the side note, Mentura is a good option. It's got dots, it's got defense break, AoE defense break, and it's got slowness on a really low cooldown. So it's a really good unit to look at.
Gotcha. And kind of on that same line as your Beretta kind of comp and your setup, would you, if people, since that is a little bit more of a common unit that they can get in those light and dark scrolls when we get them every month, would you go with a kind of a violent setup, or will you essentially use a despair set to take advantage of the two AoEs? What do you think?
For which unit again? Mentura?
For Mentura.
I would go with the whole despair set, mainly because there's not enough damage from Mentura to really take use out of violent, and that just kind of there's only one skill I believe of Mentura that does it's one dot. I can check that right here. Yes, it only deals one continuous damage effect. So I would mainly run Despair because Mentura takes up a whole spot, and dealing with the ToA teams, you got to make sure that you pick the right units to fill the entire role. And double AoE with a ton of CC capabilities, definitely I would go Despair. And none of them also deny the enemy turns, so the Despair would help do that.
Very, very cool. All right, well, shoot, that pretty much covers it for me. Is there any kind of last minute things that you kind of wanted to add as far as, tips or tricks that you feel that can help the community when they're trying to make that transition over?
Well, there's definitely a lot of things that you could discuss for Child of Ascension because it's a lot more diverse in terms of the units that you can pick. You could pretty much pick any units that you would suspect that would be popular or unpopular to help you clear the stages based on their specific skills. It's not like Arena where there's certain metas. So if you're just trying to get it first time clear, it's better to pick the regular units that you would suspect like Mav, Wa, Beretta, and stuff like that. And then once you start climbing and climbing and climbing and you got the rune quality, then that's where you would start picking other units to maybe try to make it more convenient to auto, and definitely make use of what you got. Just don't look up guides and look at a farmable guide and be like, hey, I'm going to use every unit that this person uses just because it worked for them. Because what works for them is based on their rune quality and their setup and everything like that. You got to completely be aware of what you've got as well. And there's some units that you would never even expect to be super, super useful for Child of Ascension. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely. And just kind of one thing to add, I think you made a note of this in one of your videos or whatnot. Despite the fact that ToAH is definitely a way more difficult, on the second half stages, keep in mind that even though it can be a struggle for some of us, try to how do I say this? Try your very best to stay motivated and continuously trying to work on clearing it. There's nothing more aggravating than to lose on a stage over and over and over again. But as Reafi has stated in some of his videos, is that some of these free-to-play opportunities don't come all too often. So taking every advantage you can to learn at a stage that gives you 1 month to clear it is really beneficial, because there's so much that this ToA, both normal and hard, offer you guys as far as scrolls, crystals, so on and so forth, to kind of allow you to, increasingly grow your account and whatnot. And I believe you have yourself, you mentioned in that video, you have yourself quite a handful of light and dark Nat 4s, as well as some of your top Nat 5s unit coming from that opportunity to get those legendary and all these scrolls at the very end.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. A lot of people will look at my monster box, or they'll like see my monsters in videos of mine, and they'll look and they'll see, oh wow, this is just another pay-to-play player, nothing new. You know,
Yeah.
he's got all of these units, but only 3 of my units are from bot scrolls and stuff like that, and they're not even crazy units. They're just units that I got when I was a very big noob. So a lot of these units that you'll see are just from Trial of Ascension, especially my Light and Dark units. Every single one of my Light and Dark units is from Trial of Ascension scrolls or from pieces. So it's a huge, huge advantage that you have when you're clearing Trial of Ascension, getting those extra scrolls, because you don't know, maybe the chances are bad for the scrolls, but it's basically just free scrolls for you once you clear it, and you have that small chance of getting a good unit, and that unit could be completely game-changing for you. I mean, that was the case for me with Sekhmet. I got Sekhmet from Trial of Ascension Hard Mode. I got Ganymede from Trial of Ascension Hard Mode. I got Poseidon from Trial of Ascension Hard Mode. These units are crazy good units that have helped me so much. And if I was just lazy about it, I wouldn't have these units, and I would be a lot more behind than where I am right now.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, man. Well, hey, thanks again so much for tuning in. If you guys haven't already, make sure you check out his YouTube channel, Reafi's YouTube channel. I will hit up a link in the top right section so you can hit it up. He has a ton of ToA videos out there to help you progress your game, and then showcasing a couple of his speed clearing runs, featuring even this last one here when we got that #1 rank. So again, my man, thank you for coming on board and providing this insight to your viewers.
For sure, man. Hey, I mean, maybe soon enough you'll be rushing against me in ToA Hard.
Yeah, you know, that would be awesome. But as you know, I got a lot to learn, and that is why we do these educate and dominate videos, guys. You know, I'm gonna bring it back here one time. There's so many people, because this is a common thing that I get with a lot of people. They believe that when we do these videos and whatnot, they're like, oh yeah, it's great and everything, but you know, Childish, why don't you provide us that insight on what you feel or whatnot? You know, I'd be crazy to say that I know everything, and that's why I try to get everybody together to do this. We can only learn. We can only bringing people on board. This is a great way to learn, a great way to educate all of us. And so it's been my pleasure to accelerate my progression by listening and re-listening to some of the people that have come on board, the guests that I've had over the last year and a half. So again, I wouldn't, if I get a chance to rush you in ToA Hard, it's only going to be because you gave me all the secrets. So I'm going to tell you right now, if I win, you can blame yourself, baby. You can blame yourself. All right.
Yeah, that's what Faw's doing right now. Faw and I he's trying to beat me in ToA Hard mode. So we'll see this next month. We'll see who gets #1.
It'll be nice. So again, I think what do we got? About 2 more weeks until it goes back.
Got 13
from this
days.
video. What do you think?
13 days.
13 days.
I got
13 days until we get it done.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, and since we're going to be doing that, I'm guessing that you're going to be hosting, a streaming session like you normally do or whatnot. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that people need to check out there? I believe it's twitch.tv/Reafi.
Yeah, so every Trial of Ascension reset, I stream the ToA Hard Rush mode, given that I don't have any tests or finals or anything like that the day after that. But yeah, I'll be streaming that. I'll probably have, a few guests on just to chat, or if anyone wants to chat. I mean, you can join the chat too. So I like to chat while we do Trial of Ascension and just kind of chill while we clear it in a few hours.
Definitely, and like Reafi said, he has quite a few people that is going to be contending, trying to get that #1 rank with him. So, obviously we're all good friends and whatnot. Please feel free to not only watch Reafi, but you can set up the Twitch in a multi-box format so that you can watch some of these top players go up at the same time. You can analyze their setup, see what they do differently than others, so you can kind of pick and choose what you like and kind of use it within your team to accelerate your progression. So. All right. Anything else you wanted to add, Reafi, before we close the video?
That pretty much does it.
Awesome. All right, guys. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. It is a pleasure to make these videos for you as always. It's your boy Childish and Reafi with ChildishPlays checking out. Take care, and we will see you next time, guys. We're out.
See ya.